This is why spending more money has actually been good for my wallet, my bank account, and my personal life and life in general. Before I get into the story and the backstory to the story, I'd love to hear in the comments where you're at with money spending. Are you someone that spends maybe more than you feel you should? Do you maybe spend less than you feel you should? Are you right in the middle? Do you want to change? Where are you at in your, whatever you want to call it, spending journey or income journey? So, a little bit of backstory before I get into the actual reason as to why I believe spending more money has been good for me. I grew up both in my family and then once I turned 18 and left home in a pretty scarce mindset when it came to money. Always thinking there isn't enough. We can only go out to eat once every 2-3 weeks. We're not buying organic food. We're always kind of middle of the pack, right? Like we're not splurging, but we're also not struggling financially. And that carried over into when I was 18. I got my first job at Chipotle at 18. I was making like $15 an hour. I was only working like 6 hours a week. Expenses were extremely low. My rent was 180, like 200 a month with utilities. I was barely spending any money on food. College was super cheap. Actually, it was free. It was community college. So from 18 to about 23, I spent about as little money as I possibly could. This is also when I went vegan, which actually helped in the sense of money saving. I was basically just eating rice, beans, onions, bananas, bell peppers. If you know anything about grocery prices, those are about the cheapest things you can buy. I was even dumpster diving at the time. I was sneaking into the university dining hall to get their buffet. I was saving money by any means necessary. I was splitting my apartment 4 ways my first year in Flagstaff, and then 5 ways, and then 6 ways. So it was always about saving. How can I spend as little as humanly possible? And at the time, I had a few different jobs. I worked at a bakery, cafe. I worked as a construction assistant, general manager, or no, assistant, what's it called? General contractor. I started my own cookie business. I started my own glamping business with my friends. I worked at a pizza shop. Always had these sort of like minimum wage or a little bit more than minimum wage jobs. And they were good experience for sure. I like cooking. I like baking. I like building stuff with the glamping thing. But it was always like, maybe $1,500, $2,000 a month, maybe even less, honestly. And I was barely spending any of it. And I even spent so much of my time fantasizing about the future of like, oh, maybe I can retire when I'm 45 if I save whatever the calculations are, 70% of my income and invest this much and expect an 8% return and this and that. And I was putting so much mental energy and effort into thinking like, how can I spend as little as possible for as long a period of time until I can retire and just live off of dividends or interest. And again, if this sounds like you, let me know in the comments, because I knew quite a few people growing up that were in a very similar mindset, just like how can I spend as little as possible. And something I learned from Alex Hormozy, this isn't exactly what he meant by this analogy, but I'm kind of drawing the analogy in my head, where if you're a business owner and you have a product to sell, you don't want to be the cheapest offer, the cheapest company. Like, it might seem logical to be like, okay, everyone else is selling this gadget for $10. I'll sell it for $7 and everyone's going to come to me. But the route to cheaper products is always approaching 0, because then some other company is going to see you're at 7. They're going to say, I'm going to sell it for $5.50. And now it's a race to the bottom. Versus the other way around, a race to the top is infinite. If now all of a sudden I can make the same gadget, but it's stronger, lasts longer, whatever it is, and I can sell it for 20 or 30 or 50 or 100, and it's a premium, that has infinite upside upside potential, whatever it's called. And that, in retrospect, is really something that clicked. It's like I'm focusing so much. This is up until I was like 23-ish, 22 and a half. I'm 25 now, coming up on 26. And it finally just clicked one day. I mean, I was in a relationship at the time, and there was definitely some issues when it came to how little I was willing to spend in retrospect. Didn't really see it as an issue at the time, but in retrospect, that didn't help. And that paired with then quitting veganism, needing to spend more money on food, and then also traveling maybe 4 months after quitting veganism, all of that stacked together kind of led me to swing the complete other way. So this is me getting into the why I think spending more money saved me in a way, from the sort of doom of just heading to zero. How can I spend $0 and live, right? So once I was traveling, I was spending a lot of money. Like, I was almost blinded by it. And I was just putting it on the credit card, and then at the end of the month, I'd pay my credit card, and it's like, wow, like $3,000, $4,000, $4,500. And I was like, geez, I've never spent this much money. But it forced me to start thinking in a way of, it's not sustainable to spend as little as possible. And it's so backwards from everything that we're taught. Everything we're told is like, live a sustainable lifestyle. I'm not talking about environmentalism or anything. I'm talking about like, live under your means, spend less than you earn, this and that. That's all great. I don't think those are bad practices, but they never tell you, they never talk to you about the flip side of that. It's like, what if instead of earning $50,000 a year and living on half of your income, what if you just double your income and then live on what used to be 100% of your income and is now half? And if you take that to the extreme, you see millionaires and billionaires who will happily spend $5,000 on a dinner with their family. And we look at that as average citizens, like, what the heck? Like, how do you rationalize spending $5,000 on some mac and cheese and steaks with your family at a fancy restaurant? But the point is, they make so much money that percent of income wise, it would be like your average citizen spending 50 cents on dinner. That's how much money they make. And all of this started clicking once I started traveling. Once I was almost forced to spend more money. I was in some countries that were way more expensive than others. I was in Switzerland for a day. Crazy expensive, everything. And again, like I said, I kind of swung the other way a bit too hard, where at one point I was like, I wasn't even making that much money with my business yet. And I was looking at buying like borderline luxurious things, like nice leather grounding shoes. Luckily I didn't buy them, but at the time I was like, ooh, I'm making more money. I need to, I want to buy these things, right? I think I snapped out of it, which is, I don't really know how I feel about that yet, but I'm kind of rambling at this point. But bottom line, point I'm trying to make is, once I realized the upside of spending more, I can buy organic food, I can travel where I want, I can live where I want, I can get, clean drinking water, I can buy the nicest fruits, and I can stay in nicer Airbnbs. I don't have to be crammed in a little hostel with like 40 other travelers. It opened up so much more opportunity, but it also forced me to realize that the end goal, what I'm striving for, is not to spend as little as possible, but to make as much as possible, to have the resources to then do exactly what it is I want. And I think society has conditioned us to, well, first of all, I forget which Bible verse it is, but everyone says it's money is the root of all evil, where the real verse is, for the love of money is the root of all evil. And society, I think, conditions us to think through movies and media that people that are rich are bad. But it all comes down to what you do with that money. So now that I've deconditioned myself from thinking that rich is bad, having money is bad, and realize that once I have more and more and more money, I can help more and more of the world and shape the future in the way I best see fit. Because that's the only way the future's ever been shaped. The future's only ever been shaped by the people that have power and the people that win wars or win debates or win battles. And if any of us want to have a fighting chance at shaping the future in the way in which we see best fit for ourselves, for our families, for our kids, for our community, then money, power, influence, those are all necessary. You can't do it otherwise. Like, if you have no money, you have no influence, no power, not going to change much, in my opinion. Like, comment if you disagree, but one of the biggest shifts that has ever happened to me, like second to maybe switching diets, or I guess leaving a diet, and that was all honestly correlated to the money making stuff. But once you realize that the amount of money you make is entirely within your control, and money's not even real, like, it's just an exchange of value And currently, under the US dollar, it's dictated by whoever decides how much money they're going to print this year, or this day, or this month, or quarter. I'm getting murdered by mosquitoes again. But yeah, if I had to give it a piece of advice, again, to my 18, 20-year-old self, like I did in the previous video, I would say spend more and see how you feel, even if it wipes out your savings, which I know sounds so stupid to say. But, and maybe someone watching this is in that boat. It'll open your eyes to realize that money comes and goes. Money's not real. Money is meant to be used. And finding ways to save and cut corners on every single decision in your life is, one, a massive pain in the ass. Two, it leads to zero. Like, if you continue to try to be cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, again, one, it leads to zero. And two, what was I going to say for two? It pulls your attention away from the other side of it. If you find a way to cut your grocery bill in half, what if you found, half isn't probably realistic, you find a way to cut your grocery bill by 10%, it would be more worth your while to find a way to increase your income by 10%, which if you have a 9-to-5 job sounds a little bit unreasonable to just snap your fingers and 5 or 10% increase. But if you're an entrepreneur, or you have skills or value that other people desire, then you can very reasonably find ways to make 10% more income, 20% more income. Like, if you know something, which everyone does, that other people in the world desire, then you can sell that service to them. You can sell that knowledge to them. You speak a language, you can help someone learn a language. And I know most people are going to say that there's already apps out there for it, but language coaches still get hired every single day. So it's not impossible. You know how to build stuff for people. You know how to garden, fix people's gardens in their backyards. You know how to teach kids how to swim, teach kids how to swim. I'm rambling at this point, but yeah, the answer is not to keep spending less and less and less and less, because that only leads to zero. And trust me, and I hope you can trust me, because I know, like, I was spending, like I said, $20. I had a $20 bill I started with every single Monday. I paid everything in cash just so I could keep myself accountable with the $20. But spend the $20 on rice, beans, bananas, onions, bell peppers, and if I was lucky, like 1 to 2 little tiny pint cartons of blueberries in a whole week. What was that? There's a lot of frustration involved in that, but it's in the past. It's the perfect path. We learn from it. Dude, I'm getting murdered. Just find a way to make more. Like, there's reason to have money be a barrier when you're 16, when you're 18, when you're 19, but if you've had money as a barrier for long enough, know that you can do something about it. It's not a death sentence. Like, as soon as you realize that the amount of money you're making is a problem, that's step one, realizing it's a problem. And then step two is correcting the problem. Gain better skills that can double your income. Start a business, start coaching people. Start a personal brand that you can then coach people from there. Start a personal brand that can then have affiliate links and you start making money that way. Like, there's so many ways to make money. And they're all over the place. But step one is realizing that there is a reason to make money. And that was step one for me. And it took until I was 22 or 23 to realize, like, I can't keep living my life trying to make the bare minimum, striving for only $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 a month, thinking that's all I would ever amount to be. And then I would have a wife and kids, and I'm somehow gonna find a way to be frugal enough to support the whole family on $5,000, $8,000, maybe $10,000 a month while saving money for retirement. It's not that it's impossible. You can go about it that way, but why? Like, if you're gonna be working hard, you might as well work hard in a way that's gonna achieve $50,000, $100,000 a month. Like, it's just like any cross-country race or track race. My coach would always tell me this. The race is gonna hurt no matter what. Whether you try your hardest or you try 80%, it's gonna hurt. And that's true. Like, an 80% effort is gonna hurt still pretty bad. Like, so you're gonna work hard, whether it's for someone else or for your own company or your own brand, So you might as well work hard to strive to make, like I said, $50,000 to $100,000 a month, and not settle for what society deems normal, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a month. Just go for a bigger picture. And one last little tip, dude, I am getting destroyed. Oh, I got that. One last piece. I think I heard Liam Howe, a friend from the UK, say this while I was in Mexico. If you ever want to find out what your own mental blocks are, what's holding you back, and this doesn't even have to do just with money, you could apply this to anything. Think of the biggest goal you could possibly imagine. And whatever mental blocks or whatever resistance comes up in your head immediately once that goal is set and placed in your head and you say it out loud or you write it down, whatever comes up in your head, those are your mental blocks that you need to work through. So if I wanted to say, I want to make $1 million a month, the immediate blocks that come in my head are, how do I manage that many people? That's the main one. Is like the fathoming of needing to manage that many people scares me. It terrifies me. Now I can look at that from the fearful side of like, I don't know what to do. Or I can look at it from the faithful side of, okay, that's the issue I personally need to work through, managing that many people. Cool. Step one is identifying the problem. Now I have to go after it and figure out a way to unproblem the problem. So that's it. I'm getting wrecked. Yeah, hope you found some of this useful.